Alright guys, I just want to do a quick video to show this custom collector figure that I made. If you've been watching my channel for a long time, you know that I used to do a lot of custom figures back in the day, and they were pretty bad. I wasn't as good of a sculptor back then as I am now, and also I wasn't using the right stuff to sculpt with. Basically, how I make custom figures is I take a figure I use as a base. I typically use wrestling figures because I can get them for cheap. And I'll take a Dremel and I'll Dremel the figure down to where it's basically a skeleton. And then I sculpt on top of it to make the character I want to make. But what I used to use was some kind of, epoxy putty or plumber's putty that you can get at the hardware store. It comes in a tube, and you knead it together. You knead the two parts together, and it'll harden into a rock solid epoxy, whatever. But it hardens in a few minutes, so I didn't have much working time, so it would harden before I could really get a good sculpt out of it. So a lot of my older figures just did not look great at all. So I stopped making figures for a while, but I've continued making life-size masks over the years, and I've improved sculpting a lot. So I decided to give the collector another shot here. I took my old collector figure that I had and just stripped it down and started over with it. I definitely wanted a collector figure in my collection because he's one of my favorite characters. And I need a collector figure for a display that I'm working on in my collection. I have a big shelf. I have a couple shelves that side by side, and the whole top row is just one continuous display of different masks of different horror characters. And next to the character, I have next to the mask, I have a figure of the character. I have Jason or Freddy, with their figures next to them, and then down the line, different characters. And I have my collector mask on display there, and I had my old collector figure on display there, and it's just, he really stood out because of how crappy he was, so I really wanted to redo him. And when I redid him, I went and I invested in the right stuff. Epoxy sculpt. You got part A and part B. You scoop out equal parts out of these jars and you mix it together, and you have an epoxy clay that you can sculpt with, and you have hours that you can sculpt with it. So I was able to redo this guy, and it's not the best, but it works. I think it looks really good. Like I said, it's not the best, but with the collector, he's pretty simple character. Now the mask is an actual latex mask I made. I could have made it removable, but I glued it in place so that way it would stay where it's supposed to be. Make sure it was lined up with the mouth and the eyes. You have a hard time seeing the eyes, but there are eyes painted in there. I made a mold so I can cast more than one copy of these. I think I might make another mask for this guy because this cast is really thick, and it hinders the movement a little bit of the head. Because the reason why I made the mask an actual latex mask is so that way the neck will be flexible, so that way you could pose the head. But the thickness of this particular mask is so thick that it just bounces back. But I've casted another mask that's hopefully going to be thinner. And even though this is glued down, I got putty on it by accident. God damn it. Oh well, I can clean that off later. Anyways, even though this mask is glued in place, I can still take it off and put a new one on. The laces on the back are actual laces. There's no grommets on it, but I did paint grommets on. Yeah, the thickness of this mask is like the thickness of a real mask, so it's crazy thick for this scale. So I am going to make a new one. It's going to be the same mold, just a thinner copy. For accessories, he's got two knives. Got another one here. And you'll notice they look a little bit different. I took the buck knife from the neck of Ghostface, and I made a silicone mold off of it. Ghostface uses the buck 120, whereas the collector in the second movie uses the buck 119, which is basically the same knife, but the blade's a little bit shorter. But, you know, it didn't really matter too much. I just made a mold off of the neck of buck, and that's what that is. But I was having a hard time getting a good cast. You know, most of the casts had air bubbles in it, like this cast here, that weren't usable. And the last cast I poured was a bad batch of resin. I thought I had equal parts of A and B, but I didn't, and it didn't cure right, so the mold got ruined. So I was only able to get one good cast from it, but in the movie he has two knives, so I made another knife. The blade's just a piece of plastic from a Tupperware container. And I cut a little bit, I cut off, it's not just the blade, I cut what's called a tang, which is the part of the knife that goes inside the handle. I cut a tang on it so that way I could sculpt the handle and push the tang of the blade inside the handle while the handle was still not hardened yet, so hardened around it and kept it in place. So this knife isn't exactly like that. The handle is a little bit bigger and it doesn't have the blood groove on the blade, but it still works. The knives do fit in the sheaths. The sheaths are actual leather. I would put this in there, but the blood paint on the blade hasn't completely cured yet, so I don't want to mess that up. But they do fit in the sheaths. I gave him this hook, which he uses in the second movie. Just gonna have him holding that, and he's got his box. This is the box I made for my old collector figure, which still looks pretty good. I just got a little wooden box that was about the right size for the scale from Hobby Lobby, and I painted it how it looks in the movie. And I just cut out strips of leather for these pieces that are on the box. The real box in the movie, it's metal around the outside of it, but for some reason they painted it to look like leather. I asked the director about that. He did confirm that it is a metal frame on the outside of it, but they painted it to look like leather. And these corner pieces here are just paper folded over. It doesn't look great, but it still works. And you can open the inside of it. The box in the movie's got some sort of tan paper on the inside of it. It's got a pattern on it, but I didn't paint the pattern on. And it's all bloody. You know, I got these chains in there with these, I don't know what they call it, shackles that you see in the movie. The bottom of it's all bloody, and I made what looked like, I tried to make it look like bloody handprints on the front of it, like somebody's beating on it trying to get out. So, there's the box. And I could have made more accessories to go with it. I could have made some bear traps, which would have been really cool to have with him. And, you know, there's the guns that he uses in both movies. He uses a shotgun in the first movie, and some kind of machine gun in the second movie. But I didn't want to go too crazy with the accessories for this guy, because you're not going to see most of them. Like if I made the guns and the bear traps, they'd be sitting around his feet, and you're not going to see them because it's on a top shelf. So there's really no point. You know, this knife, he's either going to hold this, or it's going to be in its sheath, and I'll probably want to have him pose holding that in the sheath, and you can see the box next to him. And also the keychain. It's got an actual keychain. Just a little strip of leather with a ring, with rings to make it look like a keychain. And the keys are not real keys. They're chain links from a tiny chain. So when you look up close, you can see they're not, you know, actual keys, but from a distance, it looks really good. He's not perfect, but overall, I'm very happy with how he turned out. And he's going to look great on display next to my collector mask with my other figures around him. And, yeah, don't know what else to say. I'll post pictures on Instagram if I do replace this mask, which I think I'm going to, because I would like to get more movement out of the head. You can pose it a little bit, but not too much. I don't know if I'll sell these mini masks or not. I don't know if anybody will be interested in it. You could use it for your custom figure, but I can't guarantee that the mouth and eye holes will line up with whatever figure you're using as your base figure. But yeah, I'm just going to give you guys some close-ups of the details on this. Trying to get a close-up of the eyes, because there are eyes painted back there. You can see it a little bit. He does have his eyes. I did add flocking to this mask, like the ones in the movie, but the flocking fibers are just too big for this scale of a mask. So if I do replace this mask, I probably won't add the flocking to it. The mask does look pretty good though. Doesn't have all the details as the one in the movie, but it's hard to get all of those details on such a small scale. If it was a 6 scale figure, it'd be a lot easier. And also the body isn't a straight up black. I dry brushed a dark gray over the clothes, so that way they look better. I don't know if you can see that or not, but there is dark gray highlights on him. It's got a few spots on it because I got stuff on my hands. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. I had a lot of fun making this figure, and hopefully it'll inspire you to make one. And I think I might do more custom figures, revisit some of those old characters I used to make figures of, like Chrome Skull. I definitely want to redo my Chrome Skull. And I don't know who else I'll make figures of. We'll see. I was going to redo my Victor Crowley, but NECA's releasing a Victor Crowley later this year that looks amazing, so I'm just going to get that instead. But nothing else to say. Hope you enjoy, guys.